Today's talk is about Matthew 25. Plain and clear. The wasting of talent. Oh, sorry, I meant talents. With some background for those of you who have never read Matthew 25 or who have never heard the interpretation of it, which is that a talent is a weight of gold. I think it's quite a lot of gold. It's like a few tons, as far as I remember. A talent. And this ruler goes out and gives talents of varying amounts to his 3 servants to care for the amounts while he is away. And there's one servant who buries it in the ground, there's another who saves it, and there's another who invests it actively and returns significantly more money than what was originally given by the master. And so what he does is the master returns and sees the state of his investments and is furious with the servant who was given the least money, the one who buried it away. You wicked and foolish servant. You knew about my money, about the way I get my money. And you buried it? And so he takes his money away and gives it to the one who has everything. And that's repeated throughout the Bible. To those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken from them. And to those who have everything, to everything will be given. And that doesn't seem to be some curse that God is putting upon the world. It just seems to be like something about the structure of creation. There's a handful of rivers that have all of the water. There's a handful of planets that have the mass of all the other planets combined. There's a handful of stars that have the mass of all the other stars combined. They're that big. They're that supermassive. There's a handful of galaxies that have the mass of all the galaxies combined. So it's something like a force of gravity that brings more money. And there's something like the force of water that causes what's left to just slip through your fingers. It just goes away. It just melts away if there's nothing to contain it. It's the same with air in the atmosphere. If you are at a point in the atmosphere or outside of the atmosphere where there's no air, the little that you have will be sucked out of you. But in the atmosphere, the air stays contained because there's so much air. It stays contained on the earth. But the second you go into a place where there's no atmosphere, it's just sucked out. It's gone. You wouldn't even know that there was a breath there to begin with because it's been sucked into such a unfathomable vastness. That's maybe a little bit of an overly artistic way of describing this for something that's very simple. It's like if you have a cup of water and you toss it up in the air and it hits the ground, the water's gone. But if you toss it up and throw it into a lake, it's still there. At least in something that's recognizable as water. So, the same happens with talents. Those who were given much will be requested from them, but they should also have used those talents to multiply their talents and make more talents. Whereas those who were given little, what they have will be considered useless and will therefore not be used and not developed and buried away in the ground, and their talents, the little that they had, will die with them. I'm disappointed that I wasn't told about Matthew 25 when I was a young child, because I had questions about my talents. It's like, Mom, Dad, I have some talents. What do I do with them? Well, if they had read Matthew 25 or believed in it enough to recount it to me, it would have been a very helpful answer, which would be, at the very least, don't bury them in the ground. That's what you don't do with your talents. You don't bury them away in the ground. And I had some feeling of that in my heart at the time. It's like, okay, well, if I just let these sit here, they're gonna rot. They're gonna go away and be taken. What you don't use, you lose. Something like that. And so, use it or lose it. So I've lost money more times than I can count, but I keep getting it back because I keep using it. Getting larger amounts back sometimes because I keep using it. And so in the context of Matthew 25, in the context of us using our talents, it would be good for us to recognize how to use them. One way would be to not bury them away. It would be just to at least place them in a savings account. And that's the current state of social media right now. You'll get your little 1 to 4% interest. And that's good right now. I mean, that's still like, they've got these high interest savings account. That wasn't the case for a long time. And that's just because the inflation of money is so crazy right now. But for the longest time, it was only like 0.025 on interest for savings account, or that something like that. 0.25, it was low. And that's what social media will be like in the future, in a fully saturated social media land. That's what social media is going to be like. And the only investments you're going to be able to make are to join with other people, essentially, to join with people who have existing brands. Right now, you got your 4% interest savings account. You put your content out there, it might reach 4% of your followers. If you have 100 followers, you might get 4 likes, that sort of thing. Interest, attention. And again, the interest example is the second servant, the one who was given a sum of money and used it, and God was like, okay. Or, sorry, in this example, it's God telling a story about a ruler. He says, okay, here's your share, here's your portion. But to the one that multiplied the money, he gave everything. And so when you collaborate these ideas with multiple people, they multiply the ideas and multiply the amount of reach that you can get on the ideas because it's on multiple platforms. That's how you would apply Matthew 25 to a social media strategy. You would multiply the amount of people that are involved. You would multiply the amount of accounts that are involved, so that you can multiply the reach, and then in the minds of those people that are receiving the idea, you're multiplying the idea itself, because some of those people are going to take the idea as their own and run with it. If it's particularly good, if it's a seed worthy of bearing many fruit, people are going to take those ideas and run with them. So that's your social media strategy with Matthew 25. The important part is that if you have a talent, don't bury it away. Don't bury it in the ground. This video started as a really short little blog post that I'd written in my notes. And after I'd finished writing it, I kept hearing, "You foolish and wicked servant, you foolish and wicked servant." Because, one, I know that my note-taking is not sufficient. But there were other parts of this too. I knew there were other layers to this. It's like, okay, well, if just taking the note and burying it away is the foolish and wicked servant. How do I overcome that and make use of this talent? The ability to speak, the ability to write. How do I make use of that? That's the question.